This is JoAnne Eisen, and I am so happy to welcome you back to another edition of Reach the Unlimited. I am very pleased to have our guest today, Kelly, who's going to be sharing with us about her path and the journey that she has traveled and how she has
Hi, everybody. This is JoAnne Eisen, and I am so happy to welcome.
I wasn't working fast enough. I'm supposed to do that really fast. Kelly, I'm so sorry. Kelly, can you introduce yourself to us and tell us, what does reaching for your unlimited mean to you?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Brickel, and I'm a reader, a healer, a teacher. And how I dive into that is I'm a psychic medium, Reiki master, energy healer. I do numerology, and I mentor people with their intuition, psychic development, and mediumship development skills. And how I reach for my unlimited is I really just tap into spirit, and that's where everything is. I could just go on what that means to me, but that's the nutshell of it, because universe, spirit, some people believe in God, the collective intelligence, the collective unconscious, subconscious, that's where all the goodies are. And that's truly, when I've tapped into it, I can never fathom how far that goes.
I am in total 100% agreement with you. That's when I feel like I'm in my sweet spot, is when you tap into that spot, you're in the spot. But you used a lot of terminology, and a lot of people may not understand what you mean by all of those things that you had mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, really, I'm kind of grabbing from different backgrounds. Spirit, to me, some people are very familiar with that term. Spirit is people who have passed, your spirit guides, your loved ones, angels. When people talk to spirit, when people are in touch with spirit, sometimes it's meditation, sometimes it's deep contemplation, self-reflection, sometimes it's prayer. It's really connection to your higher self, higher forms of yourself. And when our vibration is raised, when our vibration is faster, when we are expanding our spirit, we're in turn able to commune with higher frequencies, receive angel messages, receive messages from loved ones, receive messages from ascended masters. And some people look at those ascended masters as in prayer forms, as Jesus or Buddha or Mother Mary. Those are universal ones that some people are familiar with, the more common ones. Or other messengers of just goodwill. I've come to you to a message to love yourself. I've come with a message to tell you about your day, to make you think about something a little bit deeper. I come to you with a message of wisdom. And for some, again, that's the collective intelligence. That's how we're all connected. And how we can receive impressions and go upon that. So I hope I answered that, because it's really a really big philosophical, way of looking at things. We can go in so many different directions.
We really can. I was sitting here thinking about, okay, this is such a deep subject. It really is. And the reason I asked you that is because there's so many terms that mean the same kind of thing. And people get caught up in that. And so when you were talking, it was like, there's so many ways we can go in this, because it is very deep. And I think some people like some of the things you said, I could see there being like resistance to it or fear to it. And I really, because of my experience, and I know you are deeply connected as well, that's not something to fear.
Yeah. And the reason we kind of started so open-ended is because, I have my ways of doing things. I have my perspectives, and I try to keep things open-ended, but we're really the extent of our perspective. And we're really, boxed in by where we are sometimes at our moments in life on our journey. And it's so helpful just go, here's something like this, and you don't have to get this, you don't have to get my exact thing, you don't have to be into psychic mediumship, you don't have to believe about it, you don't have to believe in healing, you don't have to believe in intuition even. But in my experience, it's kind of like this. And just in my experience as a person, I really value and am stimulated by truth.
Mhm.
And this is the form of my truth. And if you're interested in that, then great. And it's kind of like this. And maybe that's what makes the bridge for somebody.
You know, I love that you say that because the truth is from a perspective. Like you have your perspective of life or how you were taught, and that's your truth, right? Because that's what you know. But there's more to that. And that's the journey. Everything you just mentioned was a journey that I've taken, is asking what really is the truth. What really is there more to what I know of the truth? How have you experienced that?
Oh my gosh, I'm still, yeah. That has been something like highly always important to me.
Mhm.
And when I really had my aha of how important that was, it just like really personified my life.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Like growing up, when I really had that aha, I was really into philosophy,
Mhm.
and we got to explore like from a mental standpoint, like what is the meaning of life, and what is good, and why do we do the things that we do.
Mhm.
And that really fulfilled that side of me. And then you go into this work, and it's really all about feeling and the intangible, and it's not linear. It's A, B, C. Oh, all of a sudden I got information that's Z.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, is that even possible? Is that even reliable? And you come to find, yes, it is.
Mhm.
It's just a really different way to verify it.
Mhm.
Like as a kid, like I was very in tune with people, and I was always very good intentioned. I feel like I I wanted people to feel good. That was something intrinsic inside of me because I was very sensitive to emotions.
Mhm.
Um, and when I found, it's kind of funny because I'm sure most people got exposed to this as well as I did. I was home from school one day and I started singing Sylvia Browne on Montel Williams. I don't know if
Ah,
you remember that. It was
yes.
like 2005, like around that time. And I didn't really know what a psychic medium was, or like, or energy healing, or like anything metaphysical. I've only heard kind of like stories at that point, like, oh, there's people that read at fairs sometimes, or, you know, um, there's people that are out there that do like kind of like witchy things, or it was like very black and white,
Mhm.
you know? There's there wasn't really, I didn't know anything about it other than just like from things from a religious standpoint, or people just oversimplifying,
Mhm.
like once you try to journey out into the unknown, what could that be? And it could be fearful, and there's people out to get you and trying to take your money. Like, so I grew up, and like that was my perception of everything. I didn't really have anything to go on.
Right.
um
Can I
and
ask you one thing?
yeah, sure.
Turn your volume up. We got someone that put a comment that says they can't hear you very well.
Oh no. Okay.
Just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
we didn't go too
Okay.
far in before
Sure.
I'm not sure if it's the ear. Do you need the ear things? Maybe it's that that's causing it. Your earphones.
Okay, I'll try it without the earphones. Usually I can hear better and have a better connection with the earphone. But just I'll take them out for a second and then you can
Yeah,
let me know.
let's try and see if that.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, that's much better.
Um,
Can you guys hear okay better? Just let me know if you guys
all
prefer.
right, I'm just adjusting things.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
It's
All
live.
right,
It's
just
live.
gotta roll with it.
Exactly.
We're all figuring it out. That's the
Exactly.
theme. So I'm watching Montel Williams, and I don't have a lot of exposure as I highlighted to this work, or what it means to be energy sensitive, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts talking about all these things that I had been like recently experiencing, and I started getting into meditation around that time in like 2005, 2004, and 2005. And I started having like these thoughts and contemplations. And when I'd like pray and stuff, I just had these really sacred contemplations of like, why are we here? Like, why do we exist? Why do bad things happen? Or, like, what is God? Like, what is evil? Where do we go? What are the things that aren't out there that weren't recorded, that we weren't taught? Like, like questions like these. And I kind of just, I was like, maybe it goes like this, you know what I mean? Like, and I would just be meditating for hours, and I'm like, there's something about this that it has weight to when I'm in my time with myself. Or, just like the guidance that would come to me, it would just seem like there was something to it, but I didn't have enough confidence in myself to think it was really anything. And I didn't have anything to go by to think it was just, I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was getting this information and it felt good and beautiful. And it stimulated my mind and made me feel illuminated. And so here on Montel Williams, you have Sylvia Brown talking about all these things like life contracts, soul to soul connections, like soulmates, past lives, all this stuff. And she's able to like tap into people and know their names and sometimes their circumstances. And I was like, like some of that stuff's been happening to me. That's really weird. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't know that was a thing. And then I'd been taught, prior, all this stuff and all these perceptions of what that means. And I'm like, well, everything I've ever heard about this stuff, it's fraudulent. It's not real. And so I came into this work like with an open mind, of course, because it was happening to me personally. But I was like, okay, let's see if I can start to debunk this stuff. Or if I start to practice it, let's see if I go nowhere.
That's
So you talk about on the search for truth, like I was doing it because I'm like, if this is real, this is fantastic. And if it's not real, then I would really like to be an advocate for just making sure no one gets duped.
Yeah, exactly. What you did, you challenged it. That's what I like about it. You challenged it. I know part of the work that we do is we're always looking for evidence. We're always making sure that we're on the right track. I mean, we're always questioning it. We don't just go through it blindly. And I think that's a misconception with a lot of people. Wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, so for instance, a great point of that, now with a lot of my, I've definitely since that time, I've been like blessed to study around the United States, like be mentored by wonderful people. I put my time and my resources to developing myself as an intuitive, as a reader, as a healer. Like I take it so seriously and with so much heart. I do this work. I really do. So in that time, like I learned about Arthur Findlay College and evidential mediumship. And really, there's more exposure to that now than there ever was. In America, we had Sylvia Brown, then we had Lisa Williams, and then later on we had Teresa Caputo, and they really were, I don't want to say poster childs, but they put, what it means to be a medium on display, and we started to learn through them. And really, in England, it's known through spiritualism. It's actually a religion there.
Yes.
And there's like a famous school there, and it's very centered on evidential mediumship. You could
Explain
even
to people what that is. Some people may not understand evidential mediumship. Explain that.
Sure, excellent. Yeah. So evidential mediumship is mediumship that focuses on making sure there's facts and evidence behind the reading that the medium or the psychic gives to the sitter, the person coming in for the reading. So not only is it what the person looked like, it's, the job the person had, it is their name sometimes, it's how old they are when they passed. Very poignant memories that you couldn't just, memories that go back to, okay, this person took a trip here, or you experienced this with this person, this was this person's final words to you, they died in a hospital or they died at their house in this room with this blanket. It's very specific. And even evidential messages that are for the future. Yeah, I could just, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, and that's important for people to know, because I agree with you. Mediumship now has become more accepted. There is still good mediums and there are still bad mediums. So, which
profession, there's
exactly. And that's
welders, there's bad welders.
well, okay, I won't go there. I was gonna say, yeah.
Please do.
We do, totally. So, but the reason I say that is because what you explained is what you as a person that goes to see a medium wants to look for. If they can't give you that kind of information, then you need to know you're probably not in a good place. Also, not giving your power to that medium.
Well, it's about doing your research, again, forgive me for, being so vague if this is an emotional service for people that can really highlight ethical questions. But I just say this in a way because I do feel like it highlights a point. In every profession, there's people that just haven't had enough schooling. Maybe they don't want to be there. Maybe they're not as talented as the next person, or they have different skills and they just don't really know themselves, and they're not making the most of them. So there's a lot of reasons why you're not going to have a good reading sometimes, and you really need to do your research. And everyone's human. I mean, there's going to be wonderful evidential mediums, and you can't just show up and be like, I want a name.
Right,
exactly. I want that.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because you're correct. There's two sides to that coin. There's, people that are taking advantage of people. That's a rarity, I feel. In our world, I feel that's a rarity. But also mediums can have a bad day. You can had a fight with your husband, or, couldn't deal with the kids or whatever. And it causes you not to be in your power and to be able to give a more accurate or clearly accurate reading. So there is two sides to that coin. That's a very good point.
And that's why an experienced medium, they learn how to sit in the power. They learn to let go of their ego, and an experienced healer will do the same. And you really, you reach the unlimited, as you say. You let go of your limitations as a human, and you tap into where all that information is coming from and who's going to help you facilitate that reading. Because as a reader, your job is to let go of yourself. Your job is to, and a healer, your job is to let go of yourself. Like, you're training your brain and your mind and your emotions to feel other people all day long, essentially. Like, you're supposed to be not in your own energy. You need to be to live your life, and your life will be a mess if you don't take care of yourself, put attention on yourself, like in your personal life. Absolutely, it will. But in your job, for that hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, however long you're there, how many sessions you have that day, your job is to not be concerned with yourself, because you will filter things, you will mix things up, you will mix the energies up, you will interpret, spin your own spin on someone else's story. And that is, it happens, it's very easy to do, but your job is to not be of your own energy.
So you were talking about what your growing up was like, and wanting to know the truth. What really drove you to doing this kind of work versus any other kind of work?
Sure. When I didn't really know what this was, and that it was an option for a job, even, because I really had no exposure to it until I started looking myself. Like, I started being interested in this self when I was interested in this work, excuse me, when I was like 15 and 16 years old. And that was in like 2000, the early 2000s. And I had a pretty like progressive town that I grew up in for the most part, but they weren't progressive in that yet. And it just wasn't something that I could just go to a shop, you know.
Yeah.
I got my books at Barnes and Nobles in the self-help and like spiritual section, and that was even a small section, and it started growing, you know, like year by year. I was like, oh, it's catching on. I started going to spiritual conferences. So I'm sure you're familiar with, or maybe not, who knows? But it's a big one. Celebrate Your Life. Have you ever heard about it? And yeah, I was really lucky. I grew up in Illinois, and they
Wow.
used to have one every year
Mhm.
in Lombard, and that was
Mhm.
about 40 minutes away from where I lived,
Oh,
maybe
wow.
less without traffic. And I would go there, and it was like my sanctuary. And I
Wow.
got to see, like, at 19 years old, I got to see like Dr. Brian Weiss, Sonia Choquette, Colette Baron Reed, you know, all these big names. Uh, yeah, Christine Northrup. I could just go on and on. And so I got to see these amazing people speak, or I was reading their books,
Mhm.
and I didn't have it around me, but I created the pathway to having more of it and more of it. And at first, I was cerebral with it, almost in a sense of, oh, okay, well, I can incorporate this in psychology or philosophy. And
Mhm.
this is just, I need this in my life. This is something that is just a part of me. It's something that makes me happy. It's something that feels like it needs to be in my life. So I'll just integrate it into something that's already out there. And then the more and more I tried to do that, the more I had anxiety and uncertainty. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, because the more I go into psychology, I'm going to have to do this and leave this behind. The more I go into philosophy, I have to kind of leave this behind and I have to integrate it later. And I'm like, how can I just separate that part of myself? And then I decided that I needed to do that. Like, instead of just going to school and fulfilling what
Mhm.
I felt was a path that I was familiar with, people telling me that's the path you should go, I went the other route and just started training and going to more workshops and conferences.
You know, that's what Reach the Unlimited is all about, right? It's about not doing what everybody thinks you should do, but doing what you know your heart's passion is and the direction you need to go, because we've all been in that situation. And, you know, there would have been nothing wrong with either choice. That's the beauty of it. But you stuck to the integrity of who you are to be living the life that you wanted to live. And that's what's important. And that's what really, I think, is the message, is about you have a dream, following that dream, no matter what everybody else around you thinks.
Yeah. And there was a lot of signs around me to support
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't know. I didn't know. It was something like too good to be true.
Mhm.
That's what it felt like. And I, I was like, really? Like, this is going to be a job? Like, come on. So there's a part of me that's a very practical person, for real.
Well, we
And
all have
it
that.
wasn't lining up for me. Would you say?
We all have that.
We
We
all
are,
have
we are
that.
human.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you
For
think was
all of
the
you. Oh, go ahead.
What do you think was the biggest hurdle for you to go into this kind of work?
Biggest hurdle.
Mhm.
Um, I would say the biggest hurdle was there wasn't, so I'm a pretty independent person. I don't, I guess, need people believing in what I'm doing. I have to just feel like it's just and right.
Mhm.
But at the same time, the most difficult part was going into an industry that people have a lot of stigma
Mhm.
with, from a very personal place that stigma can be.
Mhm.
You
Did
know,
you
people,
find that you kind of hit it because of that stigma at first? Because
I think,
that's an important part when
yeah,
we're.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think like I said, I didn't really have much exposure to it, and I kind of have always been a spiritual person, and a lot of my spirituality was expressed with like, how can I have a relationship with God?
Mm-hmm.
That was my first exposure to spirituality, and so that was brought through religion. And then, you're brought up in a certain way, and you're not sure how everything's going to be incorporated, and you want to make sure that you're in line with truth and goodness, and you have all these ethical and moral questions coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And I am like a pretty cerebral person at times with how I go about my choices in life, and there was a lot of those questions. And sometimes you can be at peace with yourself, but then if you're on a platform, and sometimes in this work you're going to be speaking, you're going to be teaching, if you decide to go that direction, then you have to explain to people why you've made the choices that you do every day. And you have to almost be a light for people who are confused. And so I really wanted to make sure I got it not right, but that it was as clear as I could make it. And that put a lot of pressure on me. And beginning too, especially being kind of like younger in the work in my young 20s, I had an enormous sense of pressure to always be right. I've definitely opened my philosophy.
I would say the one thing we learned fast is we should not have to be right, because we're not always going to be right, because spirit has to work through us in a way we understand, and we could have communication glitches in there at some point.
Sure. But, that was the greatest
Yeah.
hurdle that I've had to get over. And it still, like trickles up from time to time.
I hear you.
Um, but you're in a field, if we're really talking about the reading standpoint, um, people come to you and they want answers.
Right.
People come to you and they want a reading, and you want everything to be just on the money for that person.
Mhm.
And it's, in order to do that, you have to take really good care of yourself. In order to do that, you have to give yourself breaks. In order to do that, and you can't always do that, that's the fact.
Yeah.
You have to set yourself up the best you can, and it's just sometimes an enormous weight to deal with, and how to figure out how to go about that.
I would agree with that, because it's a lot of response. If you're really a good medium, psychic medium, even healer, you do carry a lot of responsibility, because we're always caring about the well-being of the person that we're working with. And I love that you said, because it was very poignant, about us being a light. We are helping people to shine a light on issues or problems or worries that they have. And that is a lot of responsibility. But the beauty is that we're not doing it alone. We have our helpers in the spiritual world that's bringing this truth forward for that person.
Yeah, we aren't doing it alone. And we never really have to do it alone. But sometimes, right, the journey of how do we have help, and how do we not put so much pressure on ourselves, that can be,
What are
definitely.
some of your go-to kind of things to come out of when you're feeling pressure like that?
Two things you said?
What are some of the things that you
Some of
do?
the things. Some of the things. So some of the things are just really self-care.
Mhm.
So it's really important for me to eat healthy.
Yeah.
Like, I have a very clean diet,
Mhm.
and that really grounds me. So my favorite thing to do, like after like a session, is to go home and have something. And I'll just eat a bunch of food, but it's like all healthy food. You'd be surprised how much I eat. It's kind of ridiculous. My husband is 6'4", and on average, I eat more than he does, unless he's hungry. We eat really. I'll just be like, yes, yes, I just need, and it just so feeding myself throughout the day makes me feel like $1,000,000 usually. If I need to, going for a walk being
Mhm.
out in nature, like resetting myself. And also too as well, salt baths or salt foot baths,
Mhm.
or even just taking a shower. There's usually an enormous amount of energy in the aura,
Mhm.
or sometimes chakras are overactive.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm sure it applies to a lot of people, but for me, oh my goodness, water just washes away and calms that overactive, busy energy.
I even have a big chunk of Himalayan sea salt that I just hold under the water.
Oh,
If I
cool.
take a shower, bath or I mean a bath or foot bath or whatever. I just hold a big chunk of Himalayan salt.
Maybe I need to try something like that.
It just makes me feel like whew, washes all away. I'm calm and peaceful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Salt, well, it's full of negative ions, and it actually purifies your field and it actually grounds your body,
Mhm.
because when you actually are in nature,
Mhm.
there's a bunch of negative ions in the soil and the air, and
Mhm.
it helps regulate your body naturally.
Yeah.
And most times, like with technology and everything, we're not outside enough.
So true. We're always around the technology.
And so that is a huge reason of why it feels so good too as well.
Exactly. What do you think are some of the biggest myths that people have about this kind of work, whether it be either psychic medium or even in the healing world?
Myths. Oh my gosh, there's a bunch of them. Um, I think sometimes people, a big one is that, yeah, if you do this work, you're going to come across like a lot of dark energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's not necessarily true at all.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very in depth conversation of why, but you'd be surprised. It's not it's not very scary, this work. It's not something that you're just in constant protection. um, there's like a lot of misconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, I'm not disregarding anyone's personal experience, but there's a lot of mixing up what energies are doing what and why they're doing it. Sometimes people will feel energy in a house and they'll think it's haunted, or sometimes they'll feel heavy energy in the room and they'll think like it's a bad spirit. And
Yeah.
really, a lot of times, what we're picking up around locations or rooms or houses or people is just like energy imprints of sadness, anger, events that have happened, and those in themselves aren't dark. They are just very heavy, emotional, mucky emotions.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're not great feeling, but they're not they're not something to be feared
Yeah.
and shaped into some of these other things that are common misconceptions with doing this work. That's like a really big one in industry.
I agree. And people thinking that just by doing it, well, there's there's another big one too. They're all going to hell or whatever. That was a big myth too. But anyway, that I lost my track of where I was going because I could hear this dialogue in my head.
Yeah, that's a big one, but it's like, can we prove that
I
one?
know, right,
Right.
exactly.
I mean, like,
And
right.
that's
But
what
I
I
don't know. In my experience and other people's experiences, that is not a thing. And you could hear them all talk about why they, in their hardest hearts, do not even fear that. You
right.
know what I
Well,
mean?
the other thing is when you actually do connect with the other side, you see how much love is there.
Exactly.
See how much healing is there. And when there's that much love and that much healing, look at some of the churches here. You don't even have that in a church. You don't even have that between a priest, a minister, or whatever you want to call that person, and the people that are in the audience. That kind of love and connection. We felt it because we communicate that way. But when you actually question it and see the love and how a spirit isn't going to do something that's going to harm you or tell you to do anything by itself, it's going to be advice or I'm with you or support or something like that, right? It's not even scary when you do it because of that.
No, no. And it's just really it boils down to people's experiences and their environment growing up. And, you know, when I started this work, I would get messages sometimes and they would always be great. And then when I would go and sit down and just try to develop the gift further, that's when I would come across myself and my fear coming up of, oh, now that I'm focusing on this and now that since it's not happening spontaneously, if this happens, do I, is this classified as good or bad? Should I be, you know, fearful? Should I be watching out for things? That's what everyone has always said to me.
Right.
And really, if you just put your, and everyone's a sponge for their worldviews and perceptions.
Yeah.
And I've had students, unfortunately, that have gone through, when they grew up and in their environment, abuse and trauma, and they know that vibration and that emotion incredibly well. And so when they feel spirit sometimes, or if they're afraid and they're new and they're developing, sometimes they will go towards reading those emotions off of people because they're very intimately familiar with how that feels and what that looks like. And that causes them then to be, oh my gosh, I'm picking up bad guys. Oh my gosh, I'm picking up a bad person. Oh my gosh, this feels like really dark. I'm really scared about this. And it's not that. It's because their mind's ready and used to picking that up.
Right.
Yeah, or if you're going through depression, or if you are going through a lot of stress in your life, you're gonna be picking up those things quite easily because you're experiencing them already in your body. And
Right.
that doesn't mean, oh, I'm a magnet for bad stuff.
Right.
It means that you gotta be really, you know, self-aware, and you have to do some internal maintenance in
Right.
order to be objective and clear, and to let yourself go if you even want to think about working with this kind of energy in reading and healing, because it can get very convoluted and very sometimes complicated to perceive, and then you can have these issues that a lot of myths are wrapped around of, you know, what we're talking about now. Oh, it's bad. Oh, you got to really protect yourself. Like, oh, you don't know what you're going to come across. You don't know what you're going to let into your life. And there is a perception of why that's so, but it's really mucked up in the way it's presented. It's not that.
I do want to go back to the church comment that I made because when I'm thinking about what I said, I'm not meaning that all churches do that. My point to that is being that just as in anything else, you have, you know, there is a lot of fighting going on, a lot of killing going on in history over religion. And that was my point to that. But when you're really connected to spirit in a way that is true, that you're really open to it, it's just a beautiful experience. I have never experienced it to be bad. But I do agree, you brought in the law of attraction, right? So if you're mad or you're angry, that's what you're going to bring in. So that's what you're talking about when it comes to how you're feeling is going to be what you project out to the spiritual world as well as your client.
How you're feeling and what you've been exposed to, what you've gone through.
Your
Yeah.
history. Mhm.
In every single reading, practically, spirit will pull from your references. And so it doesn't mean that's exactly what's going on. It means that there is an energy similarity. And so then it does not mean I see something that means that's exactly what's going on. It means I am coming across the energy, I'm coming across intelligence coming my way.
Mhm.
And if you are in touch with spirit, then you get more and more of why that's so. If you're more in touch with, oh my God, I just felt something, heard something, saw something, and what could it be? Then you're more in touch with yourself, your
Yes.
own energy, and then that taps into than what's comprised in JoAnne's experience, what's comprised in Kelly's experience. And it's going to be very limited, and then it's going to be very humanistic and sometimes very fearful, because then I don't know what's next. I guess it could have been this, but if you tap into spirit, oh, what's the next thing? Oh, what's the next thing? Oh, what's the next thing? And you just, with passive attention, you can record that, you can keep a note of that, you can hold on to that, and I promise you it will be revealed of why then that is so, because you didn't just get that for a fluke reason.
Yes, that is the thing. Is I think the one thing that can build your trust more than anything is this kind of work, because it's based on trust.
Oh,
Trust
gotcha.
is the other side, yeah. So if you got trust issues, it's a good way to go. If somebody is like, they see spirits and they're unsure about it, or they're hearing things and they're unsure about it, what would you tell somebody who is maybe experiencing the beginning of mediumship abilities? Because we all have we all are capable of doing mediumship.
Yeah, I
But
believe
we're not all going to do that because that's not our life path, or we're just not awakened yet to do it. There's so many reasons why you may. But what if you have somebody who's just waking up and
sure.
just hearing it? How would you help them through that process?
Sure. Really, it's very subjective to the individual of how they go about that, because some people are really excited and, they reach out to other people or communities or classes, and they just dive right in and they start exploring, and it's really a journey of self-discovery.
Right.
And then other people are like, oh my God, there's this experience that I've never had before, or I'm starting to have this part of me open up and I'm scared and I don't know what it is. And it's really about then self-healing and self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's people ready to dive in, and you really handle that a lot differently. And there's going to be a different kind of teacher for that type of person when they're just, I'm here, I want to learn, versus someone interested or somebody open enough to talk about it finally, and they're not comfortable with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs the journey then of, a healer guiding them, or
Yeah.
coaching,
Good
somebody to
point.
bring out and
Mhm.
to balance their energy enough where then they're okay with doing the next step.
Mhm. That's a really good point because, like we've talked about and you've mentioned, sometimes our perception of life, our experience in life, can hinder our going forward based on our beliefs, because we may have beliefs that it's bad or we're going to go to hell, or any of these beliefs that are going around in the world. So sometimes just even past trauma could be something that you have to work on, and then you would, because I feel like and tell me if you agree with this, I feel like as you're opening to that, if that's the path you're going to go, I feel like it happens pretty naturally and gracefully and all, wouldn't you say?
I think it happens pretty openly, sometimes not so gracefully. So, you know what I mean? But I hear you. It's usually more grace filled
Yeah.
because there's less resistance. They're like, I am ready. You know what I mean? And so then the floodgates open, and
Yeah.
sometimes those floodgates are pretty strong and current, and then
Yeah.
that's where you get the wobbliness with the grace.
Oh,
Rather than beautiful poses and movements and spirits coming through and life is great. It's like, what is going on? Like, I'm ready for this, but now, like, I didn't expect this. I don't know what to do with this. Why
that's
isn't it
a really
working?
good point. I didn't really think of that, because I know for me, when I first started, I was the ostrich with the head in the sand. I'm just going to keep my head in here and I'm not going to come out because I don't want to see, I don't want to know, I don't want to do. But some people, their experience is to be like, poof, floodgate open. And sometimes it, like for me, because I was the closet person, when everybody went for the ghosts, I was in the closet. I'm still in the closet for that. But I wasn't going to just open up like that, or I probably would have just freaked out. So yeah, I think it works in the way that's right for our personality.
Yeah. For our collected experiences and personality. and there's very different types. Like, so I really feel and I really see that energy mirrors our experiences. How we operate with our energy in our personal lives will go into how we work with energy as a healer
Yeah.
or a psychic medium or any other type of energy work. Yes, we have to let ourselves go more and more. And in order to really get in touch with spirit, we lose our individuality in a sense when we merge with something greater than ourselves. But there's these energy sparks and signatures of how we even got to that point. And when the energy is filtered through us, we're going to be able to work with the energy easier in certain ways due to our unique nature.
Right.
So even though maybe you had your head in the sand and it took you longer to, want to dive in and play, it's because you're a type of person that is much more detailed than the average person. You need to pull a bunch of things in order then to be ready to work with it. All right. And that's what you need. And then from that, as an energy worker, you're going to probably give somebody a lot more detail and a lot more, backbone of why this is happening or what was going on. That doesn't make anyone, better than the other of how they read. It's just that's what you would then give to a person because that's who you are as a spirit.
Right, right. And everybody's different. We're not the same. You're not going to go to any reader and get the same thing because we're all different in how we see life and how we deal with life, how we act in life. We're just unique and the same at the same time.
Yeah. And I think like another thing, since you're asking about kind of like a stigma or a myth, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of going progressive really on this
Mm-hmm.
approach. And this is what I personally feel. I think mediumship is going to psychic mediumship or psychic readings and healing. I think they're really going to evolve and become much more integrated in society. I really think everybody has this gift
Mm-hmm.
or can allow themselves to have this gift, conscious relationship if they want to. And you don't have to come in. I really see it going this way. You're not going to be coming in for a formal reading with every medium you come across. I think it'll be used to access information for science,
Mm-hmm.
for, even like business discussions, like, oh, I have a great idea. This just came to me. Or just, it's going to be our next level of receiving and accessing information and working together to evolve.
I agree with you. I see it because it's more acceptable now, and people are understanding the depths and the understandings that we can go to make the world better, to make change in the world. So I can see, and more people are trusting that, even though you don't have the scientific proof, you do in numbers, right? You do in the fact that how accurate is this person? And we all make mistakes. One of the things that you learn in mediumship not only is to trust psychic and mediumship, not only is to trust, but it's also to be okay to be wrong. Because sometimes we, like you had talked about earlier, we can see things from our perspective, our history in a little skewed way. And so it takes the medium a little bit of time to come back and go, oh, okay, that's what you mean. Oh, that now this meant this to me, but now I see what it means to you.
And sometimes you won't even know that till after the reading's over. Or
Yeah.
sometimes you won't know that until your client clarifies it with you.
Mhm.
And the thing is, like, as a reader, you don't have the answers. You're just basically, getting it verbatim as you're just like the messenger. You're just, here you go. Here's the stuff.
Right. Yeah. You're
And
just
then before I come, I gotta practice a lot to be better at getting the stuff. But while
right.
I'm here, it's not coming from me. Here's just the stuff.
It's very true. It's one of the things that I like to talk about anytime I come into this subject though is about know who you are and know your truth and don't give anybody that you go to as a reader your power. You're going to that person for advice, you're going for maybe a different viewpoint. If you take everything like it's the Bible, then you could be in trouble. It's for your information to come up with. I really want to point this. I say this all the time because I don't want people to think I can come to you and you're going to give me what I need to do in my life. And that's not how it's supposed to work, because we all have free will. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh gosh, yeah. We're going into like these hefty philosophical. I'll keep saying the word philosophical, but it's true. These are major themes.
They
Like
are. They
I
are.
used to just love contemplating free will versus determinism. Like almost like, don't even get me started. This is what I'm feeling like. But um
We'll do that conversation. I love it. I had it today with somebody else, actually. Okay, go ahead.
it's
What
great. It really is. In regards to like this facet,
mm-hmm.
really, that is just the big question out there ultimately. Yes. But excuse me, in this facet, um, the way we read, there's going to be what appears to be um, free will
Mm-hmm.
with, okay, I see you doing this, but I'm aware that maybe you're not going to want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware that there's confliction when I talk to you about this, or I'm aware that this is coming up from you. I'll be more specific. Excuse me. I'm aware that you have the possibility to get married, but I'm also aware that there's been a lot of hurt in relationships and you've been married before. And this time around, there's really an option for you to get married again, but it's a choice. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware that this isn't something fixed. It is not something strong. It's really about what you're going to do with this decision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you can talk about the other person in the equation, even like, I'm aware that your boyfriend wants this, but I'm aware that you don't want it. So it has to be then a decision on your part. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's about just these conscious decisions that a person has to make. And
Right.
that comes up in the reading. And sometimes then there's energy and you're like, you can have this, like it's here, but you have to do work.
Right.
And so from A to B, there's these steps,
Mm-hmm.
and the person doesn't necessarily at that point in time have the drive or the focus to get that done. But you, as strangely as it sounds to someone hearing it from the outside, you can actually see that their energy is going to
Yeah.
obtain it, but you're aware that it's going to not be something easy or
Mm-hmm.
not be something that is going to be lined up for them, ready to go, slam dunk, home run.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's these other free will choices that come up where you can actually see things as a possibility. You're not quite sure how it's going to shape itself out.
Exactly.
Like you'll see, let's say, again, we'll stick to relationships. I see a relationship coming up
Mm-hmm.
and I see this as something long term. Now, you can't see if it's going to be marriage. You can't see maybe how long the relationship is going to be, but you know some qualities of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you also can feel that there's a lot of variance in the energy of what it can be. Okay, that's another area of, okay, we do not have something strongly fixed. It's really up to how you're going to shape the relationship,
Right.
how you're going to carry with your own personal decisions and tribulations and growth,
Mm-hmm.
how this relationship defines through you. And then there's these more fixed points in a person's life. And sometimes people call that fate because it's just so heavy. It's just thick right there. You can tell, I feel like you're going to have another child. There's another baby waiting for you. All
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That most times is not someone's free will. There will be an energy, a spark of life waiting to come in, like, on a time frame to come into that person's life to be with them. And that's not okay, we'll see how it goes. It's that
Mm-hmm.
person, that baby's waiting. Now, depending on then what the person chooses with that, that's a different story. You know, you could get really into those free will decisions. The fate is that the baby had to come into this world. Then what happens next? It can go many different ways on that. Or I really see and I really feel in this relationship that you are having right now, in 2 years, you're going to get a proposal. I'm seeing the ring, and I'm also seeing 4th of July flags. I'm seeing the parade. I'm seeing the location. It is outside. That is a fixed event coming to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is the location. This is the place. And I have evidence with the time frame. Okay. That is something a lot more specific. It's not a maybe. It's not these elements depend on you. It's this is coming to you. It's already been set. It's already been decided. And something needs to come about this. And that's why it's happening. And so I bring this to you.
Mm-hmm.
So readings can go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, they can. But I still feel that as a sitter, somebody who's receiving the reading, that you always have the power within yourself. You never take what somebody tells you and say, okay, this is my forward direction in life now. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z because Kelly told me to. That's never what you want to do.
No way. I think when you go to somebody, you should do a lot of research.
Yes.
When you go to somebody, you should go based on reviews, based on word of mouth, based on what you've researched about the person. You can even talk to your reader beforehand, or attend a workshop or a lecture that they do if they're teaching in the area. Or if you've seen them for another service, you have to kind of wrap your head around it before you even go in, and wrap your head around it a little bit afterwards, and just be like, okay, this is what I got, and let's see how it goes. And you'd be surprised, like you're gonna have things that come to you years later and just be like, oh yeah, that's why that was said. And it's going to be, you're gonna have those ahas through the reading. It's not because, oh, it's happening because Kelly told me so.
Right.
Later on, you're gonna go, oh, I remember that was mentioned, and how cool is that lines up.
Yeah.
And then you make the connectors.
Right. Exactly. And that happens quite often.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah.
That should never be because, oh, the
No.
person has the answers. The person knows what's going on.
Yeah.
How can I put it? I've learned the readings that I'm very visual, and I'll see like kids a lot and be like, oh, you have, this many kids. And, so you have a son, I see his short hair. And then you have a second daughter, and I'm seeing the long hair, and I'm seeing blue eyes. And then your first son has brown eyes, and he's like, oh yeah, or other readings, oh yeah, those are my kids, they have those features. But
I need to tell you, yes, those are my kids, and you got the hair and the eyes color right, and the sex and the degree. So yes, you did very well. Thank you.
Cool.
I do have a son. He has brown eyes. I do have a daughter, and she has blue eyes.
Cool. Pulling off little things off. Very fun. So in your case, that sticks, but I've learned to, in my experience too, as well, also check in. Okay, do you have a son? I'm making sure, because I'm seeing the visual. Because when they're young, sometimes little boys can look like little girls when they're really young, and when they're really young, little girls can look like little boys. Because I've had little girls come in with very short haircuts, and little boys come in with ponytails. And I'm verbatim, I'm saying what I'm seeing. And these little boys have beautiful like eyelashes and full lips. And I'm not talking about like, oh, like the features, the full lips, the long eyelashes, and like wear the hair down so it's curly. And it's like, oh yeah, my son's like that. They all tell him that he looks so beautiful and he has feminine features. And I'm like, oops.
Well, like my grandson, he has long hair and he wears it in a man bun, and I can see that. And that's the style now. When my kids were young, you didn't do that. You boys look like boys, girls look like girls, period. No long, or you couldn't go to school. I remember when we were kids, you couldn't go to school if you had the wrong haircut.
Yeah, no, very different. It's a lot more open
Yeah.
now.
But kids also don't have those defined features yet. So I could see how you could mix something like that up because children have very soft features still.
There's that, or there's sexual orientation
Oh, yeah,
even.
that too. And their energy per the
Mhm.
proclivities of their energy for sure. Because what you're doing is you're reading energy. I was going to get back to that. You're reading the energy. That's the point of everything that you're going into is you're tapping into the energy of the potentials in the future.
Exactly. Like I've even when somebody, since we're talking about this subject, I've done a reading for somebody when we were focusing on when they're younger, and they had a bunch of brothers and sisters, and so I was going through what the household was like, and she was closest to this one particular child, really short cropped hair,
Mhm.
and always had short cropped hair throughout the life, and she was like a tomboy. And I'm like, oh, this individual's like really tough, like really athletic, and like would stand up for you. Like that would be the one to just take the brunt of the heat if something was going on in the house.
Mhm.
Like, and you were closest to this individual. And I asked, like, is this your brother? And she's like, oh no, I understand why you would say that though, you know? And this sister of hers had, been very openly gay like all her life, and she had sometimes buzz cuts and really really short hair, and she always dressed in like tomboy or shorts or pants
Mhm.
or like darker, more boyish like clothes. And so it's just, again, it's that filter that we have to continue to let go of, and sometimes, and we have to ask,
Yeah.
um, and really just trust yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mediums out there and psychics, and they teach like um, the importance of confidence, which I definitely agree with.
Mhm.
But they're like, structure things so you know what you're saying. I see this, I feel this, I hear this, which I think is great for clarity. But at the same time, I do think it's very important to identify what you're saying, but then to ask for clarity, because a lot of times you will get part of it, but
Yeah.
not all of it.
And you don't know what part of it is right and what part of it is wrong. If you're putting so much in as a reader, you would want to ask one question at a time because that you could be onto something but not quite correct in it.
Right. There's, when you know, it comes together,
Mhm.
but in that knowing, like, no one's, omnipotent. You know what I mean? We go back to this. Like, we're touching, we're extending ourselves for a moment, and we're getting impressions.
Mhm.
And it's really important and integrous to be, I really got a good read on this, and let me dive in and
Mhm.
this, and then of this I have a portion, and
Mhm.
you're going to help me fill in the blanks. Like,
Mhm.
what's wrong with that? you know you're not telling them to give you information. You're like, this is what I got, and it's going to be extremely evidential. I have this piece of it, I have this piece of it, I have a name, I have a date, I have a time frame, but I don't know who this is. Can you help me like out with that?
Mhm.
you know like,
Yeah.
I remember there was a reading that I had, and it was a woman, and she came in and she wanted to know about her relationship. So we started talking about the timeline, and she wasn't giving me anything to go off of, which you shouldn't be like, oh, here's my situation, this is,
Mhm.
I'm going through this, this is what I want to know about, can you give me answers regarding this? No, and like, keep it open-ended. If you want, give your reader a subject of what you'd like to focus on. Relationship, you know what I mean? Health,
Yeah.
career. All right. Can I have something like for the future? Can you tell me about what is going on with the energy currently, with my household?
Mhm.
Be very general.
Right.
Um, she came in for a relationship, And I'm like, okay, I'm seeing like this man, older. He has dark hair. He has like salt, pepper starting to streak through his hair. I feel like he is very well dressed. He has a nice job. And I feel like you're not currently together anymore. Also, as I'm highlighting who I think who this is, the information comes to me and I don't know why. So immediately, I don't have a knowing attached to it, but I know it's there. And I know that while you're two together in the time frame, someone is selling medical equipment. Okay, so medical equipment is coming up. They're letting me know that I sell medical equipment, but I don't know who this is for. Can you take that? And she's like, oh no. I'm like, oh no. And then I'm just like, okay, just hold up on that for a second. And then I'm just like, and this is, so it might not be for him. And then she's like, oh yeah, that's me. I sell medical equipment. You know what I mean? I'm just like, okay, cool. All right. You'll get like flashes in of things. And if you don't know what to do with them, just be honest. And then, keep going on with it.
Right. Exactly.
Just, don't just start, I have this information, so it has to, be to this person because I just started talking about this person. Then everything is connected.
Yeah.
Spirit's given it to me. It's
Right.
just, there's a lot of things we learn. You're talking about like free will and determinism or fate and free will and how this comes into a reading. There's no structure to a reading. There's structure to how you develop.
Yes. Yeah.
And how you will learn certain things to work with and how you'll be more familiar when things come up and good principles with that, which is great. But in the actual read, anything can happen.
Anything has
You gotta
happened.
be flexible, loosey-goosey. Here's what I got.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm the firm believer, it's not gonna, you just gotta be vulnerable, and vulnerability isn't polished.
Right.
Here's what I got. It's coming in for a reason. Here you go.
Yeah.
And I could just tell you thousands of stories. I'm just giving you like really tidbits. I could tell you thousands of stories of I'm getting things, and I think it sounds horrible when it's coming out of my mouth. I'm just like, why would they be giving this to me?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And then they're just like, oh yeah, I understand. I'm like, good, because I don't.
And we aren't supposed to. But you're right. We're not supposed to. It's for that person. We've had that so many times. I'm sure both of us have, where you're like, I don't understand this, but this is what you don't say that, but you're thinking that I don't understand this, but I'm going to say it. So I totally agree. So tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Okay, cool. You can get a hold of me through my website, energeticsessions.com. I'm on social media. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all those lovely things.
Okay.
And you can just find me through sending me a message. But my favorite way is if you email me or leave me a message. And then if you'd like to schedule something or ask about a service, that's the easiest way I can help you come and get a service.
Connect with your loved ones on the other side.
Yeah.
Whatever you need. I love that.
And I was going to say, we didn't even talk about it, but I do numerology readings as well. And I do trainings. Usually I'm in Illinois with those. So I love just psychic mediumship development and mentoring people. That's something very dear and near and close to my heart, as well as the healing and the reading work. So
yeah, we were going to talk about the healing. We were going to talk about numerology. This took a life of its own.
Yeah, I was just going along for the ride. I had fun.
I was going along for the ride too. We were doing we were following the spirit lead on this one, I guess.
We're hitting the big question.
Exactly. Hit all the heavy hitters. Thank you so much for taking your time with my audience. And you guys, if you have any questions, please do put it in the comment section. I do check them. So put any kind of comments or questions in there and we'll get back to you. And thank you all for that we're here live, for being here, and also for those that are going to watch the replay. Thank you for your comments also. Please comment, like the page as well. And thank you, Kelly, so much for being with us. You've been a great joy to talk to and very informative. I guess mediumship is the subject of the day. So, and if you guys learned anything, let us know. It's been great. If you're experiencing maybe awakening or even wanting to see a medium and you're not really sure, put that down there as well, because we all go through those processes. So thank you.
Thank you, JoAnne.
Okay, everybody take care and have a good night.
Take care, everyone.